We're in the third part of our series of 69 prophecies still to be fulfilled before the second coming of the Lord. And we ended part 2 with the Lord breaking that seventh seal, and we heard John's statement that there was silence in heaven for half an hour. I then asked the question, what does that mean? This is not the first time that we have noticed silence from heaven. If you remember at the last book of the Old Testament is named Malachi, in the last 2 sentences of the book of Malachi, it announces that Elijah would be coming. And in the first words of the story of the New Testament, Gabriel announced the birth of John the Baptist, who Jesus later confirmed was the Elijah who was to come. But in between those 2 announcements, the one in Malachi and the one by Gabriel in the New Testament, there was 400 years of silence, earthly years of silence from heaven, or about 10 hours in heaven's time clock, where nothing was said, no more prophecies or anything. But here's what you need to understand. During those years, much of the prophecy given in the Old Testament needed to transpire to be fulfilled before the arrival of John the Baptist and Jesus. Heaven may have been silent, but God's Word was still working. All those prophecies were still working out. And in fact, when Daniel wrote his prophecies, at the end, the last part of his prophecies in chapter 11 and 12, the Persian Empire was in control during those days also of Malachi and the last writings of Daniel. And the Grecian Empire was still to come, and it had to come and go. And then the Roman Empire had to come. And the prophecies of Daniel chapter 11 verse 1 through 35 had to come and go. And now we are waiting for Daniel chapter 11 verse 36 to occur next. And that's one of those prophecies yet to occur. And as for the silence in the 7th seal, the prophecies, get this, of the first 6 seals needed to catch up in time also. A half an hour in heaven's time is just over 20 years in earth's time. Seals 1 through 4 must continue to spin out in the world. None of them will come to an end, by the way. Their effects will continue on through the ages. The socialist agenda keeps raising its ugly head and becomes more invasive each time it does. That's seal 1. Think about the Spanish flu of the early 1900s. It was not eradicated. We still get flu shots today to combat the lingering effects of that Spanish flu. Most of us do them every year. People still die from the Spanish flu every year, but not in the numbers that they did when it first arrived, of course. Yet it still lingers in the world, attacking every year. And this current flu from Red China is more deadly and will not be eradicated. It too will be with us until the Lord returns, and maybe it was seal 2, and we'll let history tell us that as things spin on out from that. But be that as it may, the prophecies of seal 6, of the 6 seals I should say, must have time to occur. Now in seal 6, Satan and his hordes have just been ousted, cast out of heaven, and they must reorganize on earth and energize this satanic empire that's going to be reformed from the 10 toes. That may take half an hour in heaven's time to occur. Just over 20 years is what probably it's going to take in earthly time, because it takes about 20 years for things to happen. 20 years represents birth to adulthood in the Old Testament. In Jewish life, a man had to be 20 years of age to be considered a warrior or a leader of a tribe. And those who are 20, when the 7th seal breaks and silence happens, will be rising in leadership over the next 20 years and will push these 10 toes into the evil empire. Silence will be in heaven for half an hour while that generation turns to support Satan like it has never done before in those days. Satan's empire will consist of 9 countries. They touch the Mediterranean Sea and they surround the Mediterranean Sea, with the addition of 1 country that doesn't touch the Mediterranean Sea, and that is Britain. Satan will drive the formation of this empire when he arrives permanently on earth with his hordes of angels. 7 of the 10 countries will join Satan's choice leader willingly. He will make them his 7 vice presidents of the empire. Thus, Satan's choice leader will kill 3 and not replace them of the kings of 3 of those countries. He will take their countries by force. Thus, Satan's kingdom will fulfill the prophecy of Nebuchadnezzar's dream with the 10-toed empire with 7 leaders and 1 supreme leader and 7 horns. Daniel describes this empire as a 7-headed, that's leaders, beast, with 10 horns, that's countries. And the choice leader will not come from Britain, by the way. He will come from one of the countries that touch the Mediterranean Sea. The Revelation tells us that he comes from the sea. It does not mean that he is a sea creature. It means that his home country touched the sea. Satan will also install a prophet for his empire that will bring along his religion. He will not be from any of the nations in this empire, although he will be the religious leader of these countries before all of this transpires. Revelation tells us that he will come from the land, not from the sea as the choice leader. He comes from the land that does not touch the sea. He comes from the land where his religion is headquartered. When we look at the map of the 10 nations and think about the prominent religion that controls them today, we can quickly notice that North Africa, all those countries from North Africa, Egypt, Syria, Turkey, Macedonia, parts of Greece, parts of Italy, most of Spain, most of France, and a small portion of Britain are Muslim. They are from the religion of Islam. All of these countries have bowed to Sharia law to some extent, some completely, some in regions with a heavily Muslim population, as in Britain, for example, where British law does not control the Muslim populations. The Revelation calls this man a false prophet, and he will also control the old Babylon area, which will include Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, etc. This prophet will be a Muslim cleric. We might rightly say that Satan already controls the Muslim religion as proven by their means of evangelism. And here's what I mean by that. As such, here's how Muslims evangelize. Infidels must convert or be beheaded. Nothing in any of these prophecies happens on a whim. They all must be birthed in the minds of people, mature, and then come to fruition. It may also mean that it will take this choice leader 20 years in the public eye to be able to gain the trust of the 7 heads of the country leaders that they will follow him. It all makes sense from that point why the majesty of heaven requires silence for about a half an hour. They need about 20 years for all of this to transpire on earth. Now, with the formation of Satan's empire, we have a beast of a nation comprised of 10 countries, 7 vice presidents, and Satan's choice leader who will seem good at first, but will turn out to be a beast. We also have a false prophet. One beast is the empire itself, one beast is the leader, and the false prophet is its clergy. With the formation of the empire, the Gentile storyline continues with prophecy number 11. The 7 seals were put in place by the Lord as he opened each one in order to fulfill prophecy. 7 trumpets will now sound in order to get the Gentile world where Satan wants it to be. Now the Lord knows it. The Lord's going to have the blowing of the 7 trumpets, but it's for the purpose of allowing Satan to get done what he wants to do. The Lord will have these angels in heaven blow each trumpet, but each trumpet sound will aggravate Satan and cause his empire to be aggravated to no end. But it will help get Satan and his empire where the Lord wants him to be. Prophecy, and where Satan wants to be also. Prophecy number 11 in the Gentile storyline. Trumpet 1. Earthquake, hail, fire kills 1/3 of trees and all of the vegetation. That's Revelation 8, 5 through 7. The Lord sends a mighty storm upon the entire empire of Satan, thunder and lightning and a great earthquake. Hail came with the storm. No doubt the fire will come from the burning meteorites that ignite the dry trees and the grass. But John was looking ahead in time. Today, when an earthquake erupts, it causes an electrical grid to tear apart, and the electricity causes fire. And if our insight is correct on the trumpet prophecies, the Lord alludes to in Daniel chapter 12:4 and 12:9 through 10, the destroyed trees, the earth that's destroyed, the trees that are destroyed, the grass will only be on the land mass controlled by Satan in his new empire of the 10 toes. All the trumpets of the Lord in this section are to aggravate Satan and his empire. Prophecy number 12, Gentile storyline. Trumpet 2. Great flaming mountain thrown into the sea, killing 1/3 of sea creatures and destroying 1/3 of the ships. Revelation 8:8. All references to the sea in the Bible pertain to either the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, the Sea of Suez, the Sea of Aqaba, the Sea of Galilee, or the Dead Sea. However, the largest sea under the control of Satan is the one that his empire surrounds, the Mediterranean Sea. John does not know what this object is, but he says it looks like a big burning mountain that hits the sea and did damage. No doubt, this will be a large meteorite. In February of 2013, a large meteorite made it through the atmosphere and hit Russia, killing over 1,000 people in its destruction. Had this meteorite not landed on the land but landed in the Mediterranean Sea, the shock wave would have stunned marine life for miles and sent a giant wave that would have overtaken many seagoing vessels and destroyed them. The Revelation mountain will no doubt be much larger than the one that hit Russia. Now, Prophecy 13 on the Gentile line. Trumpet number 3. A space object falls to earth and turns 1/3 of the fresh water to poison, called wormwood or hemlock, and men die. Revelation 8, 10 through 11. John calls this object a great star, named wormwood. Commentators of the past take this event to be symbolized of the time in which people will be living, and they will say the word wormwood symbolizes a metaphor for troubles and calamity. That's what commentators say, but I disagree. All of the rest of the prophecies are straightforward. Why would this one not be the same? Wormwood is not exactly poisonous. Perhaps John is using the word for a different herb or something like that that he knew in his day that was deadly and was considered like hemlock or wormwood. We don't know. But what we do know from John is that when this star hits the fresh water sources, probably in the snowy mountain regions that feed most of the freshwater lakes, along with rain in Satan's empire, the star will have some sort of deposits on it that will make the fresh water deadly. It will not affect all of the empire's fresh water, just 1/3 of the water. And with that being the case, logically, The tainted fresh water will probably be restricted to Satan's land north of the Mediterranean Sea. And if the star was to strike the upper Nile region to poison the river, by the way, it would poison only the fresh water of the Nile, and that deaths from that would not make up 1/3 of the waters of Satan's empire. So that star probably is going to hit on the north side of the Mediterranean Sea. Prophecy number 14, Gentile storyline. Trumpet 4. Sunlight, moonlight, and stars dim to 1/3 of their normal brightness. That's Revelation 8:12 through 13. An overcast of some kind will block the viewing of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Then prophecy number 15, Gentile storyline, trumpet number 5. Locusts will be released to torment mankind for 5 months, but not to kill anyone. Revelation 9:1 through 12. According to Revelation 1, the star that has the keys to open the bottomless pit to allow the release of these locusts had already fallen from heaven. He was not falling then. He did not fall at that time. He fell when Satan fell in seal 6. This action of this opening of this bottomless pit actually backfires. They will torment the Jews who are not sealed as part of the 144,000, but they will also torment the people of Satan's empire too. So some Jews will be tormented and Satan's empire will be tormented, but not the 144,000. So prophecy 16 comes next. During the time of trumpet 5, which we just mentioned, when things are so bad, Israel signs a 7-year peace treaty with the satanic 10-nation empire. Daniel chapter 9:27. To this point in the story, the empire and its leaders have not shown their evil intent. Prophecy 17. During the time of trumpet number 5, Jews from all over the world will move back to Israel and begin the old regular sacrificial system in Jerusalem. Daniel 12:11. Israel will disarm herself, beating her weapons into farm equipment. Prophecy 18, Jewish storyline. Israel is at peace in the world except for the arrival of the 2 witnesses, Revelation 11. Israel beat her weapons into farming equipment, Joel 3:10, Micah 4:3, Isaiah 2:4, because they think they don't need to fight anyone, so they beat their war equipment into farming equipment to be able to farm their land and provide for themselves. Prophecy 19, Jewish storyline. 3.5 years or 1,260 days of tribulation begins upon the signing of the treaty. The 2 witnesses arrive and cause tribulation in Israel. It's caused by the Lord's 2 witnesses. No rain, no blessing for 1,260 days. The Lord must get the Jews where they will turn and rely on Him and only Him. However, these things that are happening for 1,260 days are really and truly a blessing, but they don't understand it. Because they don't understand it's getting them where the Lord wants them to be. However, these 2 witnesses will protect Israel from the armies of the east as well as the invaders for 3.5 years. They are going to sit there and struggle in tribulation where the 2 witnesses are stopping the rain and all of that. And they think it's bad, but it hasn't got bad yet. The Great Tribulation hasn't happened yet. Prophecy 20, Gentile storyline. Trumpet 6. A 200 million army attacks and kills 1/3 of the new empire's people, leaving only the godless people who will worship Satan. That's Revelation 9:13 through 21. Those who worship God were destroyed. Those who did not worship God were saved by this 200 million army from the east. Prophecy 21, Gentile storyline. A war will break out between the king of the south, Egypt, and the king of the west, that's Satan's evil chosen king. And the king of the north will storm down the country to help Egypt. And that's in Daniel chapter 11, verses 40 through 45. Now, prophecy number 22, the Gentile storyline. This evil king of the West, Satan's choice evil king, has already entered Egypt, and he is attempting to plunder the wealth of Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. That's Daniel 11, 40 through 45. Then we come to prophecy 23 on the Gentile storyline. While this satanic choice leader is in Egypt, Satan's choice leader hears a rumor from the king of the east. That's the one who brought in the 200 million people. And the rumor is this, that the northern king is making his way down into the promised land with the intent of taking it and all of the surrounding countries. Now, he's on his way to help the king of the south, Egypt, but he's not gotten there yet, and this king of the east is saying, hey, he's coming down the eastern side of the promised land. He's intending on taking it and all the surrounding country. However, he doesn't get Moab, he doesn't get Edom, and he doesn't get Ammon at all. They are safe. Daniel 11, 40 through 45. This message from this king of the east is no doubt a trick to lure Satan's chosen king into a trap, because the king of the east, who has just killed 1/3 of the people of Satan's empire, of the people of Satan's empire, in Satan's empire, will join the kings of the south and the north to fight Satan's chosen king of the west when that king shows up on the western side of the nation of Israel. Prophecy 24, Gentile storyline. The evil king of the west leaves Egypt to defend Israel and defeat the king of the north, east, and south. Daniel 11, 40 through 45. Now I want to make a note here. Israel cannot defend herself from the kings of the north, the east, and the south, because she has invested in farming equipment instead of weapons. That's in Joel 3. She has to rely on the king of the west and his army. She's made a 7-year peace treaty with him. He has promised to protect her, and that's who she must rely on. However, the two witnesses and her angel Michael are already there. Michael has relented a little bit so torment can come, but still they are her protection. Prophecy 25, storyline, Gentile storyline. The kings of the north, east, and south join forces to attack Israel while she sits at peace. The name of the king of the north will be Gog, G-O-G. That's the name. It will be that when he arrives. His name is the reason it is called the Battle of Gog, G-O-G, in Ezekiel 38 through 39. Prophecy 26, Gentile storyline. The king of the west, that's the president of the 10-nation revived Roman Empire with whom Israel made this 7-year peace treaty. It's Satan's chosen leader, will leave his war efforts in Egypt to defend Israel on the east side of the Jordan River, not in Iraq proper. That's in Ezekiel chapter 38 through 39. Prophecy 27, the Gentile storyline. The king of the west defeats the kings of the north, the south, and the east. Ezekiel 38, 39. Prophecy 28, Gentile storyline. The king of the west then moves his war camp to the west side of Jerusalem and pitches his tent between the Mediterranean Sea and the holy city. That's Daniel chapter 11, verse 45. Now you say that's past 36. Yes, Daniel chapter 11, 36, we have already really covered all that is going to happen in that through what's going to happen in Egypt and all that type of stuff that I just told you of the satanic king going down to Egypt, hearing that thing. That's all in the Daniel chapter 11, 36 through 35. I've just told you where that will be fulfilled. I want you to note something here. At the end of the battle, only 3.5 years of the peace treaty with Israel have transpired. Israel has been in tribulation because of their centuries of rebellion against the Lord. And the Lord has two witnesses there to primarily be a thorn in Israel's side during these first 3.5 years, or 1260 days. The king of the West intends to do away with Israel. We're going to find that out when we finally get past the first 3.5 years and into the second 3.5 years. They're going to do it. He's going to intend to do away with Israel. He's going to try to drown her, in fact. And so, this is interesting. As we come to this place in our series, we must ask two very important questions. And these questions are because of what has transpired with the defeat of the king of the north, the king of the east, and the king of the south. And Satan's chosen leader moving his tent to the west side of Jerusalem, in between the Mediterranean Sea and Jerusalem. Here's the first question. Why will Satan's chosen leader pitch his tent or his tents between the Mediterranean Sea and Jerusalem? Why? Question 2. Why will this satanic leader not go ahead and enter the city of Jerusalem?